Realm of the Mad God has a ton of different classes, 18 of them to be specific. With so many choices, it's hard to pick what to play. Welcome to the RotMG roster. In this series, I aim to give my opinions on the different classes, focusing on a new one each time. We'll go over their weapons, armors, and abilities. And what better place to start off than the class that starts your journey, the Wizard. The Wizard can be summed up with one single word: damage. Everything about this class is simply meant to pump out more damage. You don't provide buffs to other players, you don't debuff enemies, usually, you just nuke the enemies with your magic spells. Let's begin with the weapon type. The Wizard is one of the 3 staff classes, boasting decent damage paired with excellent range, allowing you to be out of the enemy's faces. The tiered staves have a range of 8.6 tiles, with a simple firing pattern. 2 shots fire out in a classic sine wave, intersecting at multiple points along the way. Since the 2 bullets don't stray too far from one another, it's fairly easy to hit both shots in most situations. The staves also have an alternate variant known as the Spellblade. These alternate weapons, which begin at tier 7, offer more damage at higher defenses, though at the cost of having a range of 6.6, 2 full tiles less than the standard counterpart. These Spellblades fire out 2 projectiles much like the standard ones, though they are positioned directly on top of each other, making it look like a single projectile. While these can be a viable option, I personally prefer to stick to the regular tiered staves for the added range. The Wizard uses the Robe armor type, just like the Mystic, Necromancer, and Bard. The tiered robes are more mana and wisdom centered armors, which play into the heavy ability usage of the classes. There are a few other robes that play into more defensive or offensive play, however, but seeing as there are 36 untiered and set theme robes, we'll only be looking at a few of the most commonly used ones for the Wizard, otherwise we'd be here for hours. The first robe we'll take a look at is the Robe of the Mad Scientist. This robe used to be a near reskin of the tier 12 robe, but was eventually reworked. Nowadays, it provides 12 defense and 5 vitality and wisdom. On the surface, this doesn't seem like much until you look closer and see that it actually lowers the mana cost of your abilities by 20% when worn. Seeing as how the Wizard is a very ability heavy class, this robe allows the Wizards to use their spells much more frequently at the cost of some survivability. Conversely, moving on to the more defensive side, we have the Water Dragon Silk Robe, dropping from Nikau the Azure Dragon in the lair of Draconis. This robe, while only providing a single more defense than the Mad Scientist, trades the wisdom and mana reduction for speed, attack, and the ability to heal. Whenever you use your ability while under 75% health, you'll gain back 100 health and gain the healing buff for 3 seconds. This makes the robe fantastic, not only for some extra mobility with the additional speed, but the self-healing can be great if you're in situations without many support classes such as the Priest or Paladin. Sticking with the defensive theme, next up is the Soulless Robe. Dropping from the Haunted Spirit in the Mid-Plains and the Death Knight in the Dead Church, this robe is purely defensive, providing 15 defense and 60 health on equip with no other stats or effects. Being one of the original ST items, it still remains tradable to this day, making for either an easy sale or a quick purchase to have a good situational robe. Moving on to the endgame robes, these tend to get more situational or synergize well with other specific items. The first robe we'll be looking at is the Diplomatic Robe, dropping from Chancellor Dama. Dama does drop a full untiered wizard set, and we'll be getting into his spell later, but for now, the robe gives 11 defense, 50 health, and a very respectable 10 attack. On top of that, the robe will also spawn a portal on your cursor whenever you use your ability, which attacks nearby enemies in a very similar fashion to the Genesis spell. Another popular endgame robe is the Vesture of Duality, dropping from Archbishop Lucorix. This robe fully plays into trading defense for damage, especially with its special effect. Providing 12 defense, 5 attack and speed, and 40 mana, this robe might not seem like it provides much damage stats as the aforementioned Diplomatic Robe. The bonus stats come from this robe's ability. Upon using your ability, you gain a whopping 15 attack, but lose 6 defense for 5 seconds. This provides a major damage boost at the cost of your own survivability, as you'll be taking more damage from each shot. The last robe we'll talk about is also one of my favorites, the Flowering Kimono, dropping from any one of the main 3 dancers in the Moonlight Village. This robe doesn't provide much in the way of defense at first, but really emphasizes on damage just like the Vesture. Providing a measly 7 defense, a hefty 10 attack, 12 wisdom, and 120 mana, this robe has an interesting stat spread. Just like most of the robes we've talked about, the kimono really has a special fun effect. Very similar to the other 2 Moonlight Village armors, whenever you use your ability, you summon a friendly pink spirit. While the spirit is alive, it'll attack nearby enemies for 150 damage per second, as well as give you the healing buff. If this spirit is in the presence of either the blue or yellow spirits from the other 2 Moonlight armors, it will level up and begin to provide better healing. If it's in the presence of one of the other two spirits, it will begin to heal you for 10 health per second. And if it's in the presence of both, it'll heal for 20 health per second. Where this robe really synergizes well is with the Kageno Hikari ring, which drops from Umi, the secret boss of the Moonlight. That ring will spawn a flame just like the kimono, though it spawns automatically at level 2 and can be a flame from any one of the armors, meaning you don't necessarily need to be with other players to level up your flames. Up next, we'll be talking about the different spells in the game. We'll be going over the tiered spells as well as a variety of the untiered ones. The regular tiered spells fire out a nova of 20 shots located at your cursor, though snapping to the center of the nearest tile. Many abilities do this, and it's not just a quirk of the spells, though it does make it much more annoying on them. The main goal of any spell is to make sure as many shots hit the enemy at once, as many of the spells don't have any form of rebounding shots. Once the spell is fired, the shots just shoot straight, and this makes aiming very important for the wizard. Luckily, there are some untiered spells that sit outside of the regular tiered progression that can really help with this. First up, you have the Sporus Spray spell from the Fungal Cavern, which plants a mushroom on your cursor, sending out an area of effect and dealing damage to any enemies that stand within it. This spell helps eliminate some of the aiming, but suffers against bosses that move around a lot. There is also the Genesis spell from Chancellor Dama in Oryx's Sanctuary. This spell will summon 4 miniature portals which all zap nearby enemies within a 6-tile radius. This spell is very similar to the Sporus spell, and provides the best damage to mana ratio in the game. The major downside is a long cooldown period alongside being hindered by fast-moving enemies. One of the best spells in the game for general use would be the Recurring Terror spell, or the Parasite spell for short. As the nickname suggests, it drops from the Parasite Chambers. This spell, while having fewer shots at only 8, has a much higher damage per shot ratio. The shots of this spell are also parametric and move in a figure 8 pattern. This means they linger for a short time, helping tack on some extra damage if any shots were missed on use, unlike regular tiered spells. One of the more unique spells for this character is the Penetrating Blast spell, dropping from Zalotl the Lightning God in the Secluded Thicket. This spell has quite an interesting history. The spell was originally illegally spawned into the game via exploiters around 2014, and it was quickly removed and not seen again until 2018. The release of this item actually caused the Tablet of the King's Avatar spell to be reworked, which we'll talk about next, so they're closely connected. The Penetrating Blast spell used to function just like a normal tiered spell, with 20 shots, but with the added bonus of piercing enemies. This could have added some fantastic crowd control to the item if it wasn't given the same damage as a tier 3 spell at the time. For 4 years, up until 2022, it remained like that until it got an insane buff. The spell now has only 6 shots, but they deal far more damage and spin around in a circle incredibly fast, almost like a miniature minefield. The rework to this spell was much needed, and it makes it so much more fun to play with. Now onto the sister spell, so to speak, the Tablet of the King's Avatar, or just Tablet for short. Dropping from Avatar of the Forgotten King, the Maze Minotaur, and the Flying Behemoth, this spell is what is known as an Event White, making it one of the rarest items in the game, as Event Whites are known to have some of the lowest drop chances, alongside the Biome Whites, which are slightly different. The tablet is the essence of a spell bomb, which is a term used for when you hit most or all of your spell shots on an enemy. The reason the tablet is the essence of a spell bomb is that it has a minuscule range of only 2 tiles before the shots boomerang back in on themselves incredibly quickly. This means that if your cursor isn't perfectly on the enemy, you won't be hitting many, if any, shots at all. Coupled with an insane mana cost of 120 when tiered spells and some untiered spells cost less than 100, you need to make sure every shot counts. The final spell I'll mention is the Runes of Knowledge, which is the Biome White for the Runic Tundra. Being a Biome White means that it doesn't have one specific enemy that it drops from. Rather, it can drop from any enemy in the Runic Tundra. However, this means the drop chances are even lower than most Event Whites. Some players report having to kill well over 10,000 enemies in a biome before seeing one, and some players still haven't even gotten their first Biome White nearly a full year after the realm rework and all the biomes were first released. The runes are the only spell to provide a debuff to enemies, and one of the better ones as well. Using the spell spawns a stationary rune that will deal damage to nearby enemies in a similar vein to the Fungal and Genesis spell. The spell will also fire out a ring of 10 shots upon use that, while not dealing too much damage, helps at least ensure some damage is dealt when using the spell. The rune that it places down also deals Weaken to enemies, causing them to deal less damage to you and other players nearby. I personally have yet to obtain this spell, so I have no opinion on it, but it seems like fun. Overall, the Wizard is a relatively fun class to play, but it is not entirely for me. While I do enjoy dealing large amounts of damage, that's all there is to this class. Other than having to aim your spell, there's no real support, no strategy, just shoot the boss and spellbomb them. Granted, you do have to watch your health more, as you're limited to the robes. I don't hate the class by any stretch of the imagination, but more often than not, I'd rather be playing either a support class or one that can do more with their abilities, like the melee classes. Due to all of this, I'd put Wizard in a solid B tier for me. This tier list is not comparing the classes to one another, but rather how I simply feel about them on their own merit. If you're looking strictly at damage, then Wizard would be A or even S tier. But this is a list ranking them on which classes I would play above all, and I can guarantee you there will be some rose-tinted glasses being worn down the line for one or two classes. My name is Starsgan, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've made it to the end here, you guys genuinely rock. Seriously, I appreciate you watching this long. If you're interested, I stream over on Twitch on Thursdays and Sundays, with a few other days sprinkled in depending on the work schedule. My streams mainly consist of PvE content, of course, while also dabbling in other challenge characters such as my Realm Lock, which attempts to emulate the feeling of a Pokemon Nuzlocke but in Realm. If you guys enjoyed, you know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. You're probably tired of hearing people tell you to do it, but they do it because it works. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, night, whatever time it is for you. Have a great one. Peace!